Hello all, welcome back to once again to another interesting story under the Azadi ka Amrit Mahotsav story series. Today I'm going to talk about that place which is there on most of the people's lips since yesterday. By now you would all know which place I'm talking, right? If not, do you know where the chess Olympiad is happening since yesterday in India for the first time in India? Yes, it's in Mahabalipuram. We all know Mahabalipuram as a tourist city which has a lot of monuments to be visited. Most of the people will go and take pictures. It has a long, beautiful coastline, which our Prime Minister Modi has visited already twice, once to meet the Chinese Prime Minister, and next, once again, for this chess Olympiad. But have you ever really thought about the significance of all these monuments? Why they are there? Who has constructed these monuments? Most of the people say that they have read about Mahabalipuram as a city that has been constructed by Pallavas. Yes, that is true to some extent. Mahabalipuram is the busiest port city during the Pallavas period, which and we all Pallavas has ruled most of the southern part of India between Kaveri in the south to Krishna in the north. That means they have covered most of Tamil Nadu, parts of Karnataka, parts of Andhra as well. Right? And they are the most powerful kings. And this Pallava Empire is the most rich and prosperous empire during their time, which has started from 275 Common Era, and Pallavas has ruled for more or less around 600 years. During this time, Pallavas has once shifted their capital from Pataliputra to Kanchi, which is the capital all throughout their entire tenure. At that point of time, Mahabalipuram is the biggest port city, and these different monuments, different temples, cave temples, shore temples, and then the rock cut monuments, all of them have been started by the second king of Pallava dynasty, who is Mahendra Varman I. Mahendra Varman is a very well-known king during the Pallava dynasty, who has really started expanding Pallava dynasty to a large extent. The thing which we need to remember here is that Mahendra Varman is not a war king or war-loving king. He has expanded his territory mainly through diplomacy and political alliances. How he has done is, Tamil Nadu or the Pallava Empire at that point of time is associated with a long coastline. A lot of traders are coming to the Pallava Empire to do their trading, right from China, Southeastern Asian countries, and the European countries, and everybody. But Pallavas mostly concentrated with the Southeast Asian countries and the China. At that point of time, I think that Europeans have not really started coming during this 275 common area, or like 300 the common area and stuff like that. So that time, what he used to do is he used to marry his son to the kings with whom he's actually having little issues, or he used to marry their daughter to his son, something like that. So most of the expansions and friendship was forged through these political alliances. As you remember, most of the marriages during the ancient Indian India used to happen mainly because of the to stabilize their kingdom, either in the political format or in the uh, um, military side. So that is the reason why Mahendra Varman, I mean, these Pallavas are basically were trying mostly the marriage alliances. Most of the people, like they have married their daughters to the kings in Cambodia, China, Hong Kong, and a lot of other places. And that is where you can see this Angkor Wat temples also represent some of the salient features which you can see it in the Mahabalipuram monuments, like rock cut monuments, or the cave temples and stuff like that. That is how our culture, our history has spread to all this Cambodia, Vietnam, and other areas as well. Mm, and the next person who has actually started, I mean, getting these monuments construction and everything to a little bit of completion is Narasimha Varman one, who is son of Mahendra Varman, and he who has actually expanded his empire by a large extent. As I already told you that Mahabalipuram is a port city, right? So what exactly were they trading and how they're getting money, how much money they are getting? These are the questions which immediately will plague any person who is a little bit interested in history. Mahabalipuram port city used to trade mainly two goods. One is the Kanjivaram silks, for which Tamil Nadu is always famous in India. And even at that point of time, the silk produced in Kanjivaram was quite famous in the Southeast Asian countries. And the second one, which we used to import from Tamil Nadu or from Mahabalipuram port, is the Ayurveda medicines. These medicines were found mostly, the references for these medicines were found mostly in the Chinese literature as well. And Bodhidharma, the famous Buddhist monk, has traveled through one of these ships that were visiting Mahabalipuram and had taken a lot of knowledge about the medicines, the Buddhism, and then went to China to establish the Zen Buddhism division of the Buddhism um, religion. And established even in Japan for that matter, and he established the Buddhist influence in those areas. And Mahabalipuram was very famous for Ayurvedic. It's not Kerala at that point of time that was famous for the Ayurvedic medicines. It was only the Pallava Empire, which actually has the roots in Pallava Empire and also in Tamil Nadu. And this was documented in most of the travel loggers. Our famous friends, Huan Sang, Mark Polo, has already documented that these things were very much in demand in Mamalapuram port. And at that time, it was called as Mamalapuram originally because Narasimha Varman was also referred as Mamalla. Because he's a very famous wrestler of his time. Mamalla means wrestler. So, because Narasimha Varman is the person who has got most of these monuments to the finalizing stages, he is or the finished state. The city has been named after him. That is what the history says. Not only our two famous travel loggers like Huan Sang or Mark Polo, even the Britishers like John Goldingham, Robert Southey had documented a lot of history about Mahabalipuram monuments. They had studied most of these sculptures one by one, which were documented on the cave temples, on the rock cut temple, on the rock cut monuments and everything. And they have written The Curse of Shema is one of the most famous books written by Robert Southey, which captures about the seven pagodas that were existing during the 300 to 400 common era period during the Narasimhavarman's time. And you know why it is called seven pagodas? Even in fact, Mark Polo has mentioned that there are seven pagodas which were guiding their ships that were coming from Europe into the correct ports. The copper domes that were fitted on the seven pagodas used to act like lighthouse, show the correct route to the people sailors who are coming in those ships at that point of time. The seven pagodas are, we only have one pagoda or one shore temple right now, but the remaining seven pagodas have been submerged in the water during the earlier floods or tsunamis. That's what the historians claim. Some historians claim that one of the temples located inside Mahabalipuram temple, the Shivan temple, is one of the last pagodas. So we have only two pagodas of the two temples right now here in the Mahabalipuram town, but the remaining five are submerged. The evidence for this theory is being shown, especially during post the tsunami, 2004 tsunami, where we can see some of the stones that can be seen during the low tide period on near the show temple. Even if you stand on the near the fence of the show temple, and people have done some excavations and saw that there are a lot of pillars, a lot of deities, a lot of sculptures lying down pretty much closer to the shore, which shows that yes, these temples got submerged under the sea, either because of tsunamis that happened during that time or because of the floods or the rising seawater levels. In fact, 2004 tsunami has deposited a lot of sea sand on these monuments, and Mahabalipuram is one of the worst affected areas during that time. After people started digging away all the sea sand and clearing these monuments, they found a new monument which depicts a lion. This is one of the very few sculptures in Mahabalipuram which depicts lion. Most of the sculptures in Mahabalipuram depict only elephants because elephants are more predominant in Tamil Nadu at that point of time and not lions. But this sculpture depicts lion, indicating that yes, lions were also existing during that time. So this gives us some more clues for further research as to what we can infer from all these sculptures. Most of the people who go there see these sculptures as the most nice photographable material, and they do take pictures and they come back without digging the history into it. But if you observe each and every small sculpture or the small minute details there, you will understand the what is the technology that is relevant at that point of time, what how the culture, how the history, the society was there at that point of time. Because all these sculptures, all these rock cut monuments, all these things tell us a lot of stories if you care to listen. So this episode is mainly concentrated on giving you high level important things which we can easily see and which we have observed during our recent trip to Mahabalipuram. And some of these photographs I had picked up from Google as well, because my photographs were not that very clear. We do see a huge tank in the near the I mean, small built tank with steps, not huge. I shouldn't say huge, with the inbuilt steps to go down in the show temple complex. And there is a small well, and there is no. It's not a well that is used to dig water here, my dear friends. The well, inside the well, you can see some small pipelines on very dry days where you can see the bottom of the well. And this must be the place where all the seven pagodas were interconnected for getting drinking water from each one of the pagodas to others. But because the other pagodas are submerged in the water, we are not able to see the end of this pipeline, where it is going or where it's coming from. And you can see some small sculpture like this, or a pillar that is standing in this small tank, right? But if you zoom in and look closer, there is a deity and there are some flood markings on this. Are you curious now? These flood markings indicate the level of water in the sea and the probability of the sea, I mean, tsunami or the floods that can come from the sea side. If the water in this tank reaches up to the neck of this deity. If you zoom in and click it, you can see that there is a deity inside with all the markings. And if the water reaches till the neck level, means this place has to be evacuated within 48 hours because tsunami is going to come. And this has actually happened in 2004 time, it seems. So all the folklore which is going on from generations to generations in ancient India has some truth in it. Only thing is, it takes a matter of time and effort by people like us to uncover the real scientific reasons for all those folklore or the ancient myths that keep floating around in across India. And one more evidence for this is that we can see is the um, lighthouses that are being used in ancient India, which are nothing but temples inside down the this is the 1870s photograph clicked by one of the Britishers, which is available in the National Archaeological Museums, where you can see the priest and the devotees sitting down here. So this is the Lord Shiva temple, which is Olankeshwara temple, currently situated in Mahabalipuram. But if you see on top of it, there is this arrow which points the wind direction. But this is not there right now in our existing monument of the Olankeshwara monument that we can see in Mahabalipuram today. But what the ancient folklore says is that there used to be huge fire that is built on the platform of this Olankareshwara temple during every evening to guide the ships that travel in the night or in the Bay of Bengal to reach their port safely. And that is the reason why this huge platform has been built on top of the temple. And there are steps from inside the temple to go to the platform. And there are like um, places where we can put oil, we can put the big torches to light the fire, which shows the excellent planning skills of the people in the ancient times of India. And in fact, current lighthouse, which is being situated very next to this Olankareshwara temple in Mahabalipuram, was built by Britishers, not built by the ancient Indians at that point of time. The reason being, this place where Olankeshwara temple has been built by ancient Indians during that time gives the entire view of the coast. And there is a conch next, huge conch situated next to the platform here, which will be used by the people who are guarding this temple to blow a horn to indicate that a ship is arriving into the port, which means that all the traders in the Mahabalipuram port at that point of time will assemble at the port to either sell their goods or buy the goods that the travelers or the ship is getting into the Mahabalipuram port. What a nice forethought, you can say, isn't it? Not only that, my dear friends, the famous, wonderful cave temples, which we call, I mean, not the cave temples, the Pancharathas, which are very much famous in Mahabalipuram, where we say that these Pancharathas are for all the five Pandavas, Dharmaraja, Bhishma, Arjuna, Nakla Sahadeva, and Draupadi Devi. Or if you see, observe very closely, are built by a single stone. It's a huge granite boulder which was carved out to build these temples like Dharmaraja's one, the bigger one, then Bhishma, I mean Bhima, Arjuna, Nakla Sahadeva, Draupadi, and all these things. But look at the demarcations, how they had nicely gave the space between each of these things. That means how precisely this entire huge granite boulder was built with the varying heights. So, what is the technology that is being used in building these temples? It was not built. I mean, even if one small mistake happens in building these pancharathas, then the entire boulder has to be thrown away. And also the question that keeps coming into my mind is, Mahabalipuram is a shore, I mean, seashore area, and it is not a mountain or a hilly region. So, from where did these huge boulders come, and how could these rajas build these huge stone carving, stone temples, or the rock cut temples? And what is the source of these huge boulders? That is again an unanswerable question. So that means they have carried these boulders from the nearby hills, either the Koli Hills or the Eastern Ghats or Western or wherever it is from, right? So how did they with these huge boulders? Each and every boulder weighs so heavy, isn't it? We really don't know the technology that is being used in this building these temples. And if you observe the Dharmaraja's Radha very closely, you can see that there are people, all the people that are being sculpted on on this cave wear certain kind of helmets. Which is similar to the kind of helmets which are being used by astronauts in modern day world. And if you see on top of the temple, there is this Trishulam, or what you can call it as a big spear kind of thing, which whose bottom is being carved out by with a deity. But if you observe very closely, doesn't it resemble the rocket launcher, which we use it in today's modern world? Especially, you saw the last rocket launching vehicle last month from the Sriharikota, the two supporting panels and the rocket on top of it, and all these pancharathas doesn't have any main presiding deity. And if you observe, all these rathas have been built, the interiors have been built with no windows, no circulation of air. Why is that so? Is that to say that these rathas were used as a space, laboratories, that they were launching vehicles? I mean, these are the questions that plagues one's mind if you are curious enough, isn't it? If you dig each and every, if you look very closely into each and every sculpture or every marking on the stones, they tell you a lot of stories. So that does that mean that space technology was prevalent during the 300, 400 common era? People are doing a lot of space research. We don't have any proofs except these markings. I mean, we can always call this as a fiction and then walk away, or we can dig into more details. I mean, and historians or archaeologists are the ones who can give us more answers for this. Not only that, my question as to how they use this technology, what technology did they use to build all these things? Is it that they are used drop melting technology? Because the tiger caves has this a lot of rocks are there, not only tiger caves but some other places in Mahabalipuram also, near the Krishna's butter ball, where you can see some rocks with all these small mark engravings, or what you can say holes that were built into it. But if you ask geologists, they keep telling that this must be the natural form of the rock. But if you put a hand into one of these holes, you can see really the place is going too deep, and you can see something like wax formation, or something like that, that was flowing out of it. Is it to do with the rock melting technology that people used to make holes, like in the previous way where I showed you, right? There are so many holes that are coming in the Pancharathas, in the um, Arjun Penance, that is the huge rock cut monument that is being very famous in Mahabalipuram. Huh? And or is it, or do they have some herbs which, when applied to the rock will turn into butter? because the Nandi, which is being present in the Tiger Cave, shows that the sculptors, the main sculptors, or the whoever it is who is doing it, are treating rocks like butter. Look at the way how nicely the sculptor has cut the Nandi into two parts. It's like as though we're slicing a butter or the bread loaf, isn't it? So what kind of tools they do have? And the same thing principle, if you take it to Tanjavur and see it, the huge granite boulder has been lifted and put on top of the main gopuram. How did they lift that huge boulder? I mean, even if the elephants pull that boulder, the elephants need to climb up to the top of the gopuram, right? How did they do it? The local folklore says that rocks do sleep at certain point of time during an entire year, where the rocks become as light as cotton. Do we know that their sleeping pattern? We don't know. But maybe the ancient Indians knew all these secrets, and that is why they were able to build so many things. And one more thing I want to tell you, that these are the first evidences of the stone cut temples, rock temples, the cave temples, which we can find in Indian history. And later only the Ajanta caves, the Kailashnatha temple in Ajanta caves came up. So that means the technology used here was copied in the Ajanta caves in constructing the Kailasnatha temple. So that shows that this is the place, Mahabalipuram is a place which has actually can be told as a stone encyclopedia written by the Pallava kings to tell you about the technology they have used, to tell you about the research they were doing, space research, underwater research, everything. And not only about that, the trade, how the trade was flourishing, how the society is working. Are My question is right now, do we have the eyes to see what Mahabalipuram is trying to tell us even today? Do we have the courage or the patience to dig into the history and analyze the Indian history and understand what they're trying to tell and learn from there to take our research and our technology, our knowledge to a next level? India is being known as a place, the seat of the knowledge, the seat of the technology, the seat of the culture once upon a time. But we have lost all of that because most of the things have been passed to us through in the oral format, or the source of the knowledge which is existing in the ancient universities like Nalanda, Takshashila have been burned down by our invaders. But still, these rocks form as a stone encyclopedia for us. So my question to you all is: do you have the energy, patience to dig into to dig and read these encyclopedias and pass on the information for the future generation? So that's all in my story, my dear friends. I took this topic because Mahabalipuram is on the lips of everybody, every Indian, because we are proud of the chess Olympiad that is being conducted since yesterday in Mahabalipuram. And you know, chess and India has long connections. So in the similar way, I wish some of us can dig into the history of the Mahabalipuram, understand it much better. Let us meet tomorrow with another interesting story. Bye bye till then.